Energy Minister Chris Bowen is resisting calls to introduce nuclear energy and more always-on sources. He is defending the solar power grid, which the Australian energy market operator warns could produce too much electricity. Yeah, after all of that, we'll get to that in a moment. AEMO claims power should be granted to shut off solar generation to prevent the grid from being flooded with excess energy on sunny days. The Nuclear for Australia chair is criticising the body, arguing nuclear energy would be cheaper and more efficient.
The laws of economics have been thrown out of the window in order to satisfy the planning of the so-called system plan ISP of AEMO, which is a work of fiction. I mean, Joseph Conrad would be proud of it, or some other author from the 18th century. But we are trying to live in this century, where 40 countries, democratic countries around the world, are moving to nuclear, and we, as an apparently democratic country, have a ban.
Matt Canavan, the National Senator, has got a view on this, as he does for many particular topics, like Tom Piotrowski does as well. Matt, it's good to see you this morning. So, look, let's start off with AEMO there, because for many years now, folks have been told to do their bit, invest in solar panels if they can. Now AEMO wants the power to shut it off because there's too much. Thoughts?
Well, look, it just demonstrates, Peter, that there can be too much of a good thing. I've never been against solar power. The coalition's not against renewables, but you can have too much of a good thing. You need to have a balance in any system. And the problem we have in our system is there is too much solar power in the middle of the day now. There's an excess of it. So more coming onto the grid causes problems there to balance supply and demand. And there's another factor that doesn't get spoken about a lot. It's quite technical, but really, really important. Anybody that's sitting at home right now under a light probably doesn't notice the fact that it's actually flickering on and off. Your light is flickering on and off. You just can't see it with your human eye. It goes up and down on a frequency of 50 hertz. And we need to keep our electricity system running at a 50 hertz frequency, going on and off all the time, up and down, or our whole system breaks. That's the way our alternating current electricity system works. Solar can't provide that stability in the system because it doesn't spin like that with that frequency, whereas coal-fired power stations, gas-fired power stations, hydro and nuclear, if we had them, can provide that balance. So if we end up with way too much solar and wind also doesn't provide that stability like you do in South Australia, the regulator often has to switch stuff off. And that's what's now happening in Eastern Australia as well, to keep the balance. So there's just not enough balance in Chris Bowen's plan, and no real idea about how we at all going to have 82% renewable energy and still keep the lights on. So
this push, though, or this plan, I mean, by overriding what are well-meaning consumers who've taken up solar, I mean, that can't be good for future take-up now.
Well, you wouldn't think so. I mean, it's not just the solar, it's electric vehicles as well. There's always this talk of maybe they supplying battery power back to the grid. The distribution network, the last mile, is just not built for that. The real risk here is that this could absolutely catapult electricity prices to another level. If you think they're high now, wait till if we don't deal with this solution, because one of the biggest parts of your bill is the cost of that last mile of electricity wires, taking things from a substation, taking electricity from a substation to your house. And if that needs to be upgraded to withstand this high penetration of solar, of electric vehicles, charging all the time, then it's going to be what the head of AEMO calls a wall of CapEx coming to consumers. That has to be paid for, so it'll push prices up for everything. I mean, it's not mentioned in the article today, but come next year, customers in Sydney will have to pay a sun tax. They're actually going to charge you for putting solar power back into the grid to deal with this issue. And so, as you suggested earlier, I think a lot of people thought they were doing the right thing. They were going to get a discount in their bills. That's what they were promised. But now, because we haven't balanced the system, people might actually be taxed for the sun. That will be very perverse, of course. It'll be a shock to a lot of consumers, but that's what's coming down the road for everyone unless we get more balance in the system. Okay, well, watch out for that. Just onto this other issue before we go, Matt. Today, after widespread backlash, a group that owns more than 200 pubs and bars across the country has now reversed its decision not to celebrate Australia Day. So what are your thoughts on that about-face? Well, I celebrate the fact that the half-life of wokeness is now less than 24 hours, apparently. I mean, we used to have to persist with this rubbish for some months. Took a while for the backlash to build, but normally, people would back down. The Roald Dahl novels would come back out with the proper words, the genders. The Woolworths would reintroduce the Australia Day merchandise a few months later. But this only took 24 hours, and I think people have just had a gutful of the virtue signalling of our corporate elites. I mean, a lot of people have made this observation, but this is a group that sells alcohol and has poker machines in their organisations. I mean, good luck to them. I don't have a problem in a free country, you doing what you like, especially on Australia Day in a month or so's time. But just drop the moral grandstanding. Why do these people have to think they need to tell the rest of us their views on the ethical structure of our society? Just do your job. Run a good pub. Let people have a good time. And part of letting people have a good time in a pub, I think, is not lecturing them. I mean, you go to a pub for a drink, not for a lecture, right? If you want a lecture, go down to your local university. There's plenty of them there telling you what you should do with your life.
Yeah. All right. Good one, Matt Canavan. Good to see you as always. We'll chat to you again soon.